Hello fellow golfers, hope you guys and gals are having a great time with your golf these days, improving a lot. Hope some of the tips and drills, some of the pointers, some of the examples that I have been covering in Ollie's Golf Studio has been helpful. Do subscribe, put the notifications on, give me a like if you like what you see. Lots more to come. This time I'm going to cover a couple of key things that are related to the golf club or clubs. And that relates to what do some of the better players, including pros, do in choosing golf clubs. And in relation to that, I will cover 5 key aspects of the golf shaft for you to think about and know a little bit about. So let's get started. Good golfers and pros, of course, first of all, they get fit, because clubs straight off the shelf are fine, but they are not really customized to your particular swing, whether it's the speed, whether it's your body movement, or whether it's particular characteristics of your swing. So do you tend to slice the ball, hook the ball, the feel that you happen to like. So getting fit, getting custom fit is quite important to make the club or clubs fit you much better, give you better results, and of course, as a result of that, give you more confidence with the clubs that you have. It's not important to have the best club, because there is no such thing as the best club. The club that works for you, that improves your game, that gives you confidence, that helps you bring your handicap down, that makes you enjoy the game more, that gives you more precise shots, is really the combination you're looking for. In relation to that, what good players tend to do is they adjust the lie and the face angles of the clubs. That includes the driver, but also the irons and other woods. And to some extent from a gapping point of view, as well as from point of view of striking the ball better with your irons, you would adjust your lie. So on irons, for example, mine are too flat because of the way I swing. I need to have the club altered slightly. Some need to be more upright. So adjusting that lie is important. From the point of view of woods, and particularly your driver, if you lower the loft, you open the face. And that is particularly important if you tend to hook. So in my case, I tend to pull or sometimes hook. So if I have a 10.5 degree driver, as I have currently, I've actually set it on 9.75, and helps me to keep that much straighter. If you raise it, you tend to close your face. And so if you tend to be a slicer, then you may want to raise the loft slightly from the standard setting to be able to manage the slices much better and bring things back in the fairway, because it closes the face. Similarly, if your lie is more upright, you tend to exaggerate the draw, and vice versa. So if your lie is more down, you exaggerate the fade. So depending on your particular swing and your regularity, you may need to adjust the lie and face angles to suit you much better. It's still the same clubs, it's just customizing it to your swing, your body movements. So adjust the lie and face angles. You'll see that a number of pros in particular put lead tape or change the weights on a driver, but on irons put lead tape or some form of weighting. And the reason they do that is it shifts the center of gravity, and that affects both your trajectory and the spin. And what you want is an optimal trajectory and optimal spin rate for any particular club. There are a number of charts that I'll put a couple of links to that show you some sort of optimal trajectories and spin rates for particular irons and clubs. You want to have yourself measured to ensure that you're getting with each club the optimal trajectory and the optimal spin. So the weight on clubs, whether it's extra weight or less weight, affecting your CG might in fact affect your trajectory and your spin to be more optimal with, again, the same clubs. It also affects your choice of clubs, obviously, but once you have a set of clubs, you tweak them to be able to be even more refined and custom fitted for you. Another thing that pros do and good players do is they tip their shafts, and what that means is having the bottom of the shaft cut half to 1.5 inches. And what that does is it makes the shaft stiffer. Now, even stiffer than what might be indicated on the shaft to start with. So that's good if you have a very fast swing speed, because it means the shaft will bend less. If you have a slow swing speed, the likelihood is you don't need to tip the shafts. The fifth thing they do on wedges is to adjust the amount of bounce and grinds they have to suit them. Because not everybody swings the same way, whether it's a sand wedge or a lob wedge or a gap wedge. For example, my 58 degree has a 4 degree bounce. Many people tend to say you should have a larger bounce, use the bounce. But because I have a shallower swing with my sand wedge or lob wedge, I need less of a bounce. So choosing the right bounce in relation to the loft and the right grinds is something that also is important to get custom fit, because it allows you to have greater precision on that short game. So those are the 5 things that good players and pros do. Adjust the lie and the face angle, look at the weight on clubs, tip or don't tip the shafts, look at custom wedge fit for bounce and grind, and overall get fitted. I hope these few key things give you something to think about. Let's cover a few things on shafts. First, the flex. You'll see on the shaft it's either regular, stiff, extra soft. In general, if you look at the driver, if your shaft is stiff, it'll give you a lower trajectory, lower spin. And it may be that in your case, in the case of your swing, you need to have a lower trajectory, because in the regular setting you are getting too high a trajectory, too high a spin, and therefore you lose distance. So you may want to optimize your trajectory and spin by adjusting which shaft you choose. If it's too flexible, it could be that you create too much spin and you are hitting it too high. So there's no right and wrong. It's a matter of, again, fitting it to you, but the flex affects what sort of trajectory you get and what sort of spin you get. And of course, that's affected also by your swing speed. In general, slower swing speed players tend to have a softer flex, and faster swing speed players tend to have a stiffer flex. Second, much like the club itself, as we spoke about earlier, you need to look at the weight of the shaft. In general, the heavier the shaft, the lower the trajectory, and the lower the spin. If you tend to hook the ball, or pull the ball like I tend to do, I then look at a slightly heavier shaft than maybe my swing speed would warrant, because it helps me keep the shot much straighter. So it's the optimal choice between weight and your swing speed and your swing trajectory and spin. The third on the shaft is the length of the shaft. Increasingly, many people talk about a shorter shaft being better for you because it gives you greater consistency. The downside of that is you may have a tendency to hit the impact point being much more on the toe. Similarly, if it's longer, you perhaps have less consistency and the ball may be closer to the heel. So depending again on your flight patterns, you may want to look at slightly shorter shafts if it suits you. But bear in mind, you may need to adjust your ball position and your setup position in order to be able to have a more central strike and more central impact point. Of course, other things affect the issue of length, and that is your physical size, your arm length, your swing speed, your ball flight, and of course the feel. So the point being that the weight of the shaft is also an equally important issue. The fourth you will see in some of the specifications is kick point, and that's the sort of whether the kick point is high or low on the shaft. If the kick point is high, it tends to result in a lower flight. If it's low, it tends to result in a higher flight. So if you tend to get too high a flight, it may pay you to get a shaft that has a slightly higher kick point to bring that trajectory down, and vice versa. Of course, this is also affected by the tipping of the shaft if you are tipping the shaft. So there are varying ways to adjust the shaft dimensions and specifications to suit you. At the end of the day, what you want is the optimal trajectory, optimal spin for any particular club, for your particular swing, and your tendencies. Finally, there's torque. In general, the lower the torque, you'll see it in the specifications, 3.2, 2.8, 4. The lower the torque number, the lower the twist. So if you tend to have a higher swing speed, you tend to want a lower torque because you don't want the shaft to twist too much, because that'll exaggerate any particular tendency. The torque largely affects feel. So if it's low, you tend to sort of feel a more sort of plankier feel. If it's high, it tends to be more whippy. If you have a high speed, swing speed, and you tend to hook, you may want to look at a lower torque, and vice versa. If you have a lower swing speed and you tend to slice, you may want to have a higher torque. As I mentioned, however, torque largely affects feel. You'll be affecting the trajectory and spin through the other dimensions, the flex or bend, the kick point, the weight, tipping if you're doing the tipping, and the length. So those are the 5 elements of shafts: flex, weight, kick point, length, torque. I hope these elements are somewhat useful to you in going for a fitting. Take these into account, know a little bit about these, so that as fitters begin to look at your swing, you can not only sound more intelligent, but you'll be more aware of your swing and tendencies, and you can actually point out certain things that perhaps you may want to try, in case they don't think of giving you a stiffer shaft or a shorter shaft. if your tendencies are one or another, the hook or the slice that I was mentioning, or you're finding your trajectory too high with your current clubs, you can of course also have your existing clubs adjusted to fit you better. So it's not just about buying new clubs, it's about having your existing clubs, particularly if you've bought them off the shelf, adjusted to and customized for you to give you a better performance and better results. Happy golfing. See you on the flip side. Look forward to sharing some key tips very soon.